are going to discuss the questionnaire method a little bit further. So we are going to talk about what it's like and how is it like to design a questionnaire. So last time we discussed what different methods there are regarding the questionnaires and surveys, but this time we are going to discuss how to design a questionnaire. Now the first question is, why is it so important to have a good design for the questionnaire? Well, it's important because with a good design, you can have less problems at the end, because if you have a very good design, you will be able to answer your research questions quite well, and it will also be very easy to understand what people think, and also to analyze the data. The sequence of questions is important because you cannot start a questionnaire with, if you are interested, let's say, in loyalty of people, you cannot start a questionnaire with, are you loyal? So this is not the way we should go, but you should have some kind of structure. It should also have an inner structure, basically how you word the questions, which question groups do you do into which part, do you take into which part, how do you mix the questions, and what list of questions you use and how. Probably the most important thing is that you need questions that are easily understandable. I think in the research field, especially if you are researching in English, which is most probably not our mother tongue, not our first language, it's very important to have it clear so that everyone else would understand. So with good English skills, good English grammar, and if you think that there is something that is not easily understandable, you have the space to have a little bit of explanation. Maybe you can explain one or two keywords as well. We're going to discuss the sequence of questions and inner structure and different question types. Let's start with the sequence of questions. Well, the sequence could be quite different, but regarding on what you are researching and regarding the aims of your research, this sequence of questions should adhere to your subjective logic. And also think about the respondent. Okay, as a respondent, would you answer that question if it was you to answer it? But we have a general rule, and this general rule says that you should start a questionnaire with a broader topic. And from the broader topic, narrow it down to smaller topics or to the specific topic that you are researching. Just to give you a short example, if you move to the next slide, you will see that there is an example of sequence of questions. So let's say you are researching people's consumption habit of whiskies. You are interested in what type they know, you are interested in how they consume the different types of brands. In this case, you could have different types of questions. At the beginning, you are most probably interested in whether or if they drink whiskey at all or not. So first you are interested in their habits, because if they don't drink it, then you are not interested in their opinion. But then, after you realize and after they tick that yes, they drink it, then you can ask questions which refer to their knowledge. So you can have these knowledge type of questions when you ask them, and they are free to reply anything they want. You don't provide them with initially presupposed answers. Here you can also have different types where probably you give them some multiple choice questions where they could choose themselves, but maybe both can have advantages and disadvantages, of course. Other than knowledge, you can also have questions regarding usage. If they drink, how often do they drink? If they drink, where do they drink? So all these kinds of questions regarding the usage of the thing that you are researching. In this case, it is whiskey. Okay, and the third type of question could be an attitude question, in which you ask them what is their opinion, let's say, about a specific brand, about a specific brand's commercial, specific brand's taste, name, logo, whichever you are interested in. And this is regarding the attitude of people. The fourth type of questions could be demographic questions, and usually demographic questions are either at the beginning or at the end of the questionnaire. Most often they are at the end, because if you ask people at the beginning, like, okay, how old are you, when were you born, They say, okay, they ask me all these kinds of questions. I don't want to volunteer this information. But after they filled in a short survey, they might feel like, okay, they are happy to share it with you, because if they told you their opinion, probably they would volunteer this information much easier. So we have these 4 different types: knowledge, usage, attitude, and demographic questions. And probably this is an example of a sequence that you can also use in your own questionnaires if you decide to do so. We have certain rules what we should follow. The first one we already discussed, that there is a sequence of questions that we should employ. The second rule is that before you start with the questions, you should have an introduction. So at the beginning of each questionnaire, I think it makes sense and it's okay to have a short intro of what this research is about. At certain points, it is not so good to tell the people who are going to fill in your questionnaire. At certain points, it's not good to tell them your research aim. But if you feel like that, maybe telling them your aim of research would help them understand your questionnaire and answer better, then also you can do it. So it is completely dependent on you. It completely depends on you. You have an introduction. You have a logical sequence of questions, and then if you feel like maybe there are some keywords that you as a researcher know very well because you are researching that topic yourself, but you think or you suppose that your respondent will not know it or probably won't have an idea what it is, then you can explain it to them. So let's say I'm researching greenwashing. Greenwashing is something that companies usually do when they say they are green and they use eco-friendly material and they do their production in an eco-friendly way, but in reality they don't. So greenwashing probably is a term that many people know, but there might be people who are not even familiar with that. We discussed that you need a logical sequence of questions. It would make sense. It would be much easier for the person who is filling in to follow your logic and also to answer the questions easier. All the questions regarding private life, economic situation are at the end, because if somebody has already volunteered some information about themselves, probably at the end they would say that, okay, I would still volunteer this information. So it should be at the end, and it should be asked in a more indirect way, so that they don't feel that they have to give, for example, an exact number of their salary, but they can choose between a range. And this will make them somehow more distanced from the topic. And the last general rule that we should discuss is the length. Usually, questionnaires shouldn't be longer than 5 minutes, because people very quickly lose interest in filling in your questionnaire. And if you want to be successful, if you want to get a lot of results, I think it's key that you don't design a questionnaire which takes half an hour to fill, unless you really can find some people who will be able to fill it and who would volunteer to do such a long questionnaire. So let's move on to the next topic, which is the question types. Well, it could be, we can have lots of different question types. Well, in this case, the first grouping is based on the way of how we ask. So it's based on the way of the question, or based on the way of asking. Well, it could be a direct question and it could be an indirect question in this case. As we have discussed just now, if you ask indirect questions, maybe the person who is filling in your questionnaire doesn't feel so pressed that they have to answer a question, even if it's personal or even if it's too personal for them. So in case of direct questions, you want to get a direct and clear answer, and most often your questions are like, for example, what university are you studying at? You feel that this is a question that you would be able to easily answer, and so this is a direct question because it is something that is quite natural to say and to share with somebody. On the other hand, if we think about indirect questions, we would like to get information in a more polite way, so we don't necessarily directly that, okay, how much do you earn? But we do something like, in a range of, I don't know, 1,000 euros or 2,000 euros, How much do you earn, or which group would you put yourself? In case of possible answers, we can categorize question types based on the answers we supposed to get. And in this case, we have two different types. We have the open-end questions and we have the closed-end questions. If it's an open-end question, it means that the person who is filling in your questionnaire would be able to have like a big space or a smaller space, and they would have to write their answers themselves. Well, you feel that it would be great if everybody filled in this type of questionnaire, because we would know their opinion, we would know what they think. But on the other hand, if you think about it yourself, how many times you were asked to do something like that, and how many times you were asked to fill in a questionnaire like that, you would say impossible. So that's why in questionnaires it is quite rare that we use these kind of methods that people have open-ended questions. Yes, in some cases it makes sense, and in some cases, if the topic is very interesting for your target group, they might give you answers, but don't expect too much at this point. In case of open-end questions, we can say that why do you like playing sports is an open-end question. You have to answer yourself. I don't provide presupposed answers for you. Why? In case of closed-end questions, I ask you a question and you already have some items to choose from. So I ask you that, okay, why do you like playing sports? And I list 10 different reasons and I tell you to choose. Well, in this case, what could go wrong is your answer is not among the 10 that I have enlisted, and maybe I forgot to add an option of other, so that you won't be able to say your opinion. Or I can still use these my own ideas of why you like playing sports, and also add this other option. So if your answer is not there, you will be able to add another option. But then people would feel it would take so much time to type it in. I'd rather pick two randomly. So we have advantages and disadvantages with both of them, both open and both closed-end questions. So I think it's very hard. I think you should choose the type, whichever you feel that would fit your research teams better, and which would get your interviewees or the people you're going to ask to fill them in a way that you would get good answers and you would be able to analyze the data well. So if we categorize the question types based on possible answers, we have partially open-end questions as well. So partially open-end questions are rather tasks than questions. I sometimes use them, and I especially use these methods when I would like to distance the person I'm asking from the topic. So I want their opinion rather indirectly, so that they think that I'm not asking them, but I'm asking somebody in the same situation. So that's when I'm using these half open-end questions or partially open-end questions. Especially when you are researching attitudes. And in this case, you have a sentence, and half of the sentence contains an information like, which brand do you think of when you hear? Or when we were researching the university image, we asked students that those students choose the University of Szeged who are, and they had to finish the sentence, they had to finish what they think. And it was their opinion, even though I didn't ask like, okay, what do you think? But I asked them to distance themselves from the topic and think what other students would do and why they choose it. This is the same thing with maybe inner qualities and the brand image. Is that, what do you think? If the University of Szeged was a person, how would he or she look like? What inner qualities would he or she have? And it was very interesting, and the results also were very interesting, because for some people the University of Szeged was an old man who is trying to keep up with the pace and who is trying to be modern. For others it was a young woman who is nice and who is quite modern. So it can have, and you feel that there's a difference between the two, but you can understand what they mean.